Yeah,
Thank you for reminding
and
me. Okay.
I didn't remember either.
Okay.
Thank you, Kat.
Sure.
So yeah, so a few weeks ago, everyone was all hyping about the Olympics. I don't know if any of you guys are following it or not, or somewhat.
Yes.
I know really the Olympics really don't come from a Jewish source, but let's not get into that. But we see how much, and the Olympics just a millisecond can make such a difference, right? If there's some type of race and, who could be the quickest, just a little, you know, millisecond can make a difference of who won the race or what the goal, if the goal was made before the game was over, not before the game was over, and all different kinds of things like that. And um and sometimes differences could be just by a hair's breadth. And there's actually even um there's a famous story by the FIFA World Cup in 2022 that there were um there was two teams, I think Germany and Japan, and the question was, did they make the goal, or was there like a foul? Like, was the ball totally out of the court, and that would, like, change the whole way that they would read the score, if they would, count it or not. And they literally like sat and watched like all the different video streams from all the different angles and then they finally figured out that the ball was still a drop inside the court at some point that made it that, whichever team won. Like, made such a difference because they sat and checked, just a little measurement of how much the ball was inside the court and not in the foul, beyond the line, that made the difference of who actually won the game. So sometimes you see these little details or little something that doesn't seem like anything significant in our regular life seem to make such a big difference. And so we can look at the same with mitzvahs. Does it really matter if we follow all the laws of how to do a mitzvah exactly right? Right? There's mitzvahs that have time constraints, amount constraints, place constraints, exactly how you're supposed to do it, when you're supposed to do it. And every little detail makes such a different, makes a difference. So let's say, for example, oh, you're not supposed to, there's a thing that we don't eat before we hear Kiddush on Friday night or Shabbos after you daven. Does it really make a difference? You just take a little lick of something, if you just take a little bite, or or even the Kiddush itself. It has to be a certain amount. And you have to say it, at a certain time or a certain thing. So every little thing in Judaism has so many, I want to say, like, calculations or measurements in some way or another, or constraints, or these mitzvahs are bound by so many things that most people say, oh, but it's a thought that counts. Oh, but I just wanted to do this thing, or I'm just doing it the way I understand how to do it, or what works for me. So is that okay? Or is it really important to do the mitzvah with every single detail? Is Hashem really so petty that we need to do everything exactly just so, or did the rabbis just make that up to drive us crazy, or I don't know what? So, to understand this and to understand why we have all these details in the mitzvah, or what gain it is, we're going to look into this week's parsha. Okay, so where this week's parsha is Re'eh. Moshe is still giving his long speech before he passes away. And during the speech, he mentions many commandments. For example, in this week's parsha, we talk about the laws of kosher and what animals or fish and stuff are kosher. And he makes one important anecdote. Let's read this. I don't know if it's called an anecdote. That's the word that I'm using. Okay, text number 1. But you want to do it?
Sure. Everything that I am commanding you, be careful to fulfill it. Do not add to it or do not subtract from it.
Okay, so be careful sounds right, right? Hashem tells you be careful to do something right, yeah. But why does it say don't subtract from it? Sorry. It makes sense. Don't subtract from it. Don't do less than the mitzvah. But why does it say do not add to a mitzvah? Why can't we add to a mitzvah? For example, let's say you want to decide you want to observe 2 days of Shabbos. Or instead of having 4 species to shake for the lulav and the estrog, to shake on sukkahs, why can't you add a 5th one, something that you like, like lavender or rosemary or something like that? Why can't we add something to a mitzvah? Isn't there like an adage that says more is always better? But the mitzvahs have to be precise and they're very detailed. So no, we can't decide that we're going to light Shabbos candles an extra night for some special reason. every single mitzvah is important exactly precisely the way it is written, and not just extra. So it goes on to the question, it goes on to the idea of, right, why do mitzvahs have to be so precise? Why do they have to be so petty? Why does every single thing about the mitzvah has to be taken into account? So for example, I guess here we have some samples of the question. Why does Jewish religion seem so obsessed over insignificant details? How much matzah do we have to eat? Which spoon did I use for the milk and which for the meat? What is the right way to tie my shoelaces? It seems, you know, all these little things seem so minute, and like, what is it so important? Okay. Sorry. This is a text. Oh, text number 2. I thought it was a question. Okay. I'm like, hey, what's going on up here? Okay, text number 2. Go ahead, Shelley.
Okay, question. Sorry, just basically read the whole thing.
Well, I didn't read the end of it, so you could pick up where I left off.
Oh, you want me to do that?
You could.
It seems to me that this misses the bigger picture by focusing on minutia. This is nitpicking what Jews call spirit. Is this nitpicking what Jews call spirituality? I actually already sent you this question over a week ago and didn't receive a reply. Could it be that you have finally been asked a question that you can't answer?
Okay, so this is somebody, I guess there's some kind of online forum, and people are able to send in questions to this rabbi, and this rabbi answers them, and someone asks a question, hey, why do we have all these details in the mitzvah? And then the guy says, hey, maybe you don't even know the answer to my question. I stumped the rabbi. Well, guess what? He didn't. We're going to find out why. Okay, so, and look at the other side of this is that, do you ever feel that some people are so specific and careful about doing the mitzvah exactly right with all the details, they start to become OCD, and like, oh my goodness, this person's like, you know, checking for imaginary bugs in their lettuce or something else, and you're like, hey, you know, maybe it's not healthy, maybe it's not so good for people to be so specific and so careful about every single part of the mitzvah. Maybe they have to like lighten up a bit and breathe. So there's actually the famous Rabbi Nachman of Breslov actually mentions this issue, being OCD about mitzvahs. Text number 3. Catherine, can you read?
Sure.
Okay.
There are many who would spend much time in the lavatory attempting to totally cleanse out their bodies before praying in the morning. The rabbi spoke out strongly and ridiculed this practice.
Okay, because there is a thing that you can't daven if you need to use the restroom. Okay, continue.
Interesting. He said that the main thing to remember is that the Torah was not given to the ministering angels. It is not necessary to go beyond the requirement of the law. And the code state only that it's forbidden to pray when one actually feels the need to relieve themselves. Even in situations where a person really does need to relieve themselves, there are many laws cited in the Shulchan Aruch, especially dealing with emergencies or when one has no other choice. From all this, we see that there is no need to be overly strict in this respect. One should not keep oneself from prayer and study just for the sake of a mere qualm, which in and of itself is unnecessary strictness and foolishness.
It continues. A second. Okay.
The best thing is to pray as soon as you wake up in the morning. If you can easily attend to your needs, then do so. But if not, pray immediately. Even if you have a slight sensation in your bowels, it can be ignored. We shouldn't seek out such disciplines and depressing measures, as such measures are not for our time. The Rebbe himself had made this error in his youth, doing many unusual things to achieve bodily purity. He went so far that he endangered his health and even his life. But finally, he realized that it was foolishness and a waste of precious time.
So I'm assuming he's talking about like the Rebbe of Breslov. I'm not sure if there's one before Rabbi Nachman. I'm not so versed in their history, but not the Rebbe that we call the Rebbe. Okay, so some people may be OCD in religious practices, which is not healthy. It's not a good thing. So when are details good and when is it too much? So we're going to open up a Hasidic concept today and expound on this issue of the details of the mitzvah. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, sorry. Good to see you.
Yeah, okay. So as we mentioned in previous classes, right, the halacha or doing a mitzvah is precisely will. Hashem's desire is infinite. Hashem himself is infinite. So mitzvahs, by doing at their very core, are part of Hashem's infinity, part of Hashem's infinite being. Okay, we'll read about that in text number 4. Eileen, are you okay to read?
Sure. The desire in mitzvot is connected to God's innermost essence, higher even than God's desire to create the universe. Although the desire to create the universe is also a deep desire, it is limited insofar as God's desire to create the universe is ultimately a desire that he should be drawn down into the universe within the finite confines of the universe. The desire God invested in mitzvot, on the other hand, is that he should be drawn down without any limitation whatsoever. Rather, just as he exists above, he should become present below.
Okay, so how could Hashem draw down his infiniteness if doing a mitzvah a specific way is limited, right? If you can only do a mitzvah a certain time, a certain day, a certain way, with a certain object, with a certain material, that is boundaries, that's limitation. Godliness is unlimited, is unlimited, it's not contained in boundaries. So how do we bring God's infinity and infinite essence into a place of a finite, mitzvahs are, they're contained, and it's in a contained place in this physical world. So let's read text number 5. Text number 5. Batya, are you okay to read?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, great.
Now mitzvot are also limited. All mitzvot have certain limitations under which they can be performed. For example, tefillin have to be made of 4 scrolls in 4 compartments in the head tefillin and 1 compartment in the hand tefillin. Moreover, there are many detailed laws regarding the manner of writing the scrolls, manufacturing the boxes, and putting them on. Likewise, tzitzit have to be made in a specific manner. Likewise, the sukkah cannot be smaller than 7 tafachim and no taller than 20 amot.
Tefach is a hand's breadth, and a amma, I think, is about a 1.5 feet.
Oh, interesting. All these measurements and specifications came from the supernal desire, meaning that Hashem desires that the mitzvot be performed specifically in this way, etc. This translates to limitations in the divine light. For when the mitzvah is performed as specified, the light is drawn down. And if it is not, it isn't.
Okay, so when we do a mitzvah, we channel Hashem's infinite light. Okay, so how is his infinite light being drawn down in a specific place? Or if we even talk, even to talk about infinity is kind of impossible, because even talking is bound and finite. But so it seems that trying to bring this this infinite light into a confined space seems to make that it's limited. So how do the mitzvahs channel Hashem's infinite light? How could they come down into this infinite light? Let me just read this question. How is a defined and limited mitzvah able to channel infinite godly light? Okay, that's what I just said. Good, now we're on track. Okay, next one. Shelley?
Sure. In truth, this limitation is not a limitation in the light itself, meaning it does not determine how much light can be drawn down or whether it will be more or less intense. After all, essential infinite light is not subject to such terms. Rather, the limitations of mitzvot determine only how the light, the unchanging infinite light, is drawn down. If the mitzvot are performed in the precise way, then the light is drawn down, for that is how God decided he wants his light to be assessed. This is not because the precise details of the mitzvot have any inherent qualities that enable them to access God's light, but rather because God decided that it should be this way.
So doing the mitzvah in a precisely with all of its specifications, it brings down an infinite light. It doesn't say, okay, you do a mitzvah and it's this big, this is how much light it brings down. No, it just brings down a light, not particularly into that mitzvah, just brings light into the world. But by doing that mitzvah with all its specific specifications. So the actual limitation of the mitzvah doesn't affect the amount of godly light that comes down. So, like, for example, did you ever try to plug a 220 into a 110? You know, it won't work because it's not made up to work together. So trying to use, trying to do a mitzvah, not how it's supposed to be done, just what's going to make you feel good, isn't going to bring that godly light down into the world. So, for example, a silly example, let's say you decide to use a lemon instead of an esrog. It's not going to work. Or if you light the Shabbos candles after Shabbos begun, or on Thursday night, or whatever. So Hashem is the one who decides how limited or unlimited a mitzvah should be. He's the one that made these specifications. He made, okay, I have a desire, I have a will, I want people to do these mitzvahs. This is how you do it. Follow the rule book. This is what the rule book says, how to do this and this mitzvah. Let's read text 7a. Catherine, when you read it?
Sure.
Thanks.
We are obligated to perform the mitzvah in a precise manner only because that is how God decided the mitzvah should be performed. If God's will was that we should chop wood or something similar, we would chop wood. The limitations of the mitzvah, that God's will assumes a specific form and excludes other forms, are not for any fathomable reason. Rather, they are simply there because God willed that it should be so. Consequently, there is no limitation in the light itself. The limitation is only in how the light is accessed. The light itself remains God's essential infinite light.
Okay, so the main thing is performing Hashem's will. When we perform his will as he asks, we bring down this amazing infinite light. So adjusting or changing or progressing with time, say, oh, we progressed. Now, we can change this mitzvah because this is what fits into what the world, what's PC or something like that. That's not going to bring down the infinite light that Hashem is bringing down. It brings down when we do the mitzvah precisely the way he wants. So just kind of brings in a side note. This is what I was thinking about. Let's say women who say, oh, we want to be part of the minyan. We want to have an aliyah. We want to, do certain things that are mitzvahs that only required for men. Why? Why don't we do them? Not because women are less or women are, are not as good as men or anything like that. Not at all. It's because that doesn't bring down godly light. Each of us have the mitzvahs that bring down Hashem's infinite light. And no matter how much you read from the Torah or have an aliyah, or whatever it is, it's not going to bring more godly light in the world. Is what we're doing when when the right person in the right place or the right thing is doing a mitzvah. That it might make you feel good, make you feel great, but it's not doing what a mitzvah is supposed to do, which is bringing God's infinite light into this world. Okay, that's just a side note, my interjection. Okay, answer. Okay, so a mitzvah is limited because it is a physical means that God created through which we can fulfill his will and draw down his infinite godly light. The action itself isn't important. The fact that it's God's will makes it significant. Okay, text 7b. Eileen, you want to do it?
Sure. Okay. The concept of limitation in the mitzvot is that they determine how God's essence is drawn down. Meaning that through performing the mitzvot precisely as they should be performed, one draws down God's essence. In other words, how does one draw down God's essence? By performing the mitzvot in their prescribed manner, for it is God's will that his essence should be drawn down in this way.
So the precise definitions of the laws, which may be, have limitations and, because it's physical, is what brings down the infinite light. So why can't we just do it our own way? As I said before, that's not Hashem's will. And that will not bring down that infinite light. And that's why, as I said before, we make Kiddush has to be a certain way, a certain amount of wine, and certain time, certain prayers. Hanukkah, you know, we have to also light the candles, the Hanukkah candles, a certain way, a certain time, a certain order, because these are the things that are going to bring down this godly light. And when we do this, we access this incredible infinity from Hashem. Every single detail that we follow in the mitzvah, we're doing the mitzvah correctly, that kind of brings us infinite light. It maintains our relationship with Hashem's infiniteness. And so every single detail is important. Kind of like a machine, right? Like you have a machine, you have an engine, you have something. Every single part, every single piece is important, even though some things may not look like they're very important. They may seem very small or just seem like, you know, what's this little screw here? What's this little nut or bolt? You ever have like a little paper, teeny piece of paper gets stuck in your copier, and then all of a sudden your copier is not working? You know, it's just a little teeny piece of paper. What does it make a difference? But yes, it makes a difference. Text number 8. I have no clue who we're up to. Is Shelley or Batya?
Either one. I'll go. Let's
go.
Batya. Okay.
No, go ahead.
An engineer designs a machine using multiple parts. Among the various parts, some are more critical than others, and there are some that to the average observer may seem entirely unnecessary. But the engineer who designed the machine knows very well the purpose of every part, and how each part, even the tiniest screw, is critical to the overall function of the machine. Let's say someone comes along and says, "Why should I bother with the engineer's designs when building the machine? I'll do what makes sense to me." To my eyes, these little parts are unnecessary and the machine doesn't need them to function. I don't need this tiny screw, and I may even add a different screw.
And it continues.
It's quite obvious that this makes no sense. If the builder does not follow the engineer's design and does as he or she sees fit instead, the machine won't work. The only reason why the builder feels that this little screw is unnecessary is because they have no appreciation whatsoever for the machine's design. This is a precise metaphor for creation and our mission to observe the mitzvot. Just as every part of the machine is critical to its overall function, so it is with observing the mitzvot. Our connection with God is fashioned specifically through the 613 mitzvot of the Torah and the 7 mitzvot of the rabbis.
It continues.
When a Jew adds or subtracts a mitzvah, though it may seem like a trivial matter, in truth, it undermines the entire relationship that is forged through Torah and mitzvot, just as the absence of even one small screw will prevent the machine from working properly.
So did anyone ever like get something they had to put together themselves? And you have to follow the directions and instructions how to do it. Otherwise,
Yes.
oh, what's this? Why this? What's this
Yeah.
going on over here, right? And
Yeah,
I
I
won't
just-
say, but there's a certain half of society that never follows the directions that tries to do it without looking at it. And then the other half of society, women who actually follow directions actually to the T to make sure they get it right. Right?
You know, I took a photo for this for Yvette because she's engineering and
Uh-huh.
things have to be so, you know, precise and perfect. And you can't have like even, you know, an eighth of an inch screw larger, smaller. I mean,
Right.
it has to be perfect.
Right, exactly. And that's, yeah, especially with the space shuttle. Okay.
yeah.
So now remember the rabbi
You
who
know-
got to ask that question in the beginning and the guy thought that he stumped the rabbi? Here's the answer the rabbi gives him. But yeah, you could go for it.
Okay, answer. I never claimed to have all the answers. There are many questions that are beyond me, but it happens to be that I did answer your question and you did get the answer. I sent a reply immediately. The fact that you didn't receive it is itself the answer to your question. You see, I sent you a reply, but I wrote your email address leaving out the dot before the com. I figure that you should still receive the email because after all, it is only one little dot missing. I mean, come on. It's not as if I wrote the wrong name or something drastic like what?
Yeah.
Would anyone be so nitpicky as to differentiate between Yahoo.com and Yahoo.com? Isn't it a bit ridiculous that you don't get my email just because of a little dot? I love this.
He's a good rabbi. Okay, continues.
Okay, I love it. No, it's not ridiculous because the dot is just a dot.
It's
It
not
represents something. That dot has meaning far beyond the pixels on the screen that form it. To me, it may seem insignificant, but that is simply due to my ignorance of the ways of the internet. All I know is that the message gets to the right destination. Without it, the message is lost to oblivion. Jewish practices have infinite depth. Each nuance and detail contains a word of symbolism, and every dot counts.
Okay, enough said. That was a good answer.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, you might do a mitzvah or half a mitzvah, and you might feel very spiritually uplifted. But that's not the point of the mitzvah. It's not that we should feel spiritual or uplifted. And some mitzvahs make us feel spiritually uplifted, and some mitzvahs don't. You know, everyone's different, and every mitzvah is different. But the point of the mitzvah is to bring godliness into the world, to connect to the infinite. And you may feel good after doing something that wasn't a mitzvah, etc. So what we learned today is the mitzvah is really, we do it because it's Hashem's desire, and when we fulfill it, when we fulfill his desire, we draw down his essential infinite light. And yes, we should be inspired by the mitzvahs. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be inspired by the mitzvahs. It's good to be inspired by the mitzvahs. But again, everyone's different, and some people have to work to get inspired over a mitzvah, and some people, are automatically inspired by doing certain types of things. And that's the main point of doing the mitzvah. Text number 10. Okay. Catherine, I think. I don't know, Catherine, Eileen, I'm not keeping track. I'm doing an order. So,
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
It is for this reason as well that when one performs mitzvah, they must accept the yoke of heaven, which means to nullify one's own desires and rationalizations and perform the mitzvah strictly because they are God's desire. When one internalizes this, they can perform mitzvah with great enthusiasm, knowing that they are fulfilling God's desire. When one contemplates that the mitzvah are really God's innermost desire, the value of each mitzvah increases greatly in one's eyes, and they perform the mitzvah with great pleasure and enthusiasm. When a Jew performs mitzvah in this way, by first accepting the yoke of heaven, then they can draw down God's essential desire.
So that doesn't negate the idea that if you do realize why God likes you to do this mitzvah and why he wants you to do this mitzvah, and that gives you more inspiration, that's even a higher level. But even just doing a mitzvah because you know that it's from Hashem and he's the one that gave you this mitzvah to do, that alone is a good reason to do a mitzvah. But it's even better if you actually eventually learn or understand, or and so you eventually have that more inspiration because you know where it's coming from. Now, there's a common phrase that is used in the Torah, specifically usually by the sacrifices, by the offerings that they did in the Beis HaMikdash. And that term is reach nechoach, which we translate as like a pleasant aroma. So like, let's say this and this and this sacrifice is brought to Hashem, it should bring a reach nechoach, a pleasant aroma to Hashem. So Hashem enjoys, quote unquote, the smell, quote unquote, of the sacrifice. And if we look at the word nechoach, it's nun ches ches, and it's very similar to the word nachat, which is nun ches saf, which also, so it has some type of connection. Andrea, are you able to see the screen? I'm not sure if you see the screen or not, the reading.
Yes, I do.
You want to read that one?
Our blessing aroma is in the spirit of satisfaction for me, that I commanded and my will was performed.
Okay, so pleasant aroma. Hashem gets pleasure when we do his mitzvahs. It gives him nachas, just like when somebody who you work for, you work on, and they do something and it gives you pleasure that they're, understand you or doing what you wish or whatever it is. The same thing with Hashem. So if we are giving Hashem nachas, pleasure, it should make us happy too and excited to do the mitzvahs in the right, precise manner. So the best, and I guess I'm the only way to meet with Hashem's infinity, with the infiniteness of God, is through the very finite mitzvahs, which sounds like kind of like an oxymoron, but hey, that's how we do it. So by doing a mitzvah with all its defining nuances, you're making an infinite expression of Hashem being revealed into this world. Through the mitzvah, we reach Hashem's essence, which is an like infinitesimal, as like big as you can imagine. It's so infinite. We can't even like, we as being finite, it's so hard for us to really imagine how infinite us doing the mitzvahs for Hashem are. Okay. Okay, and now who read last? I already lost track. Eileen, you want to read? I think we're up to you.
Shall I?
Sure.
Thank
Sure.
you, Eileen.
To explain, the fact that mitzvot were given to us in a limited manner is because the ultimate goal of a mitzvah is to unite the limited and limitless. It is especially in this manner that God's essence, which transcends both limitation and limitlessness, is expressed. Therefore, it is only through God's self-limitation that we can achieve this. By God limiting the way we can assess his limitlessness, we can achieve the unification of limitation and limitlessness, which is possible only in God's essence. I
That
don't
was
know.
almost a tongue twister.
Yeah.
So how do we basically, how do we combine the limitedness of us and of our mitzvahs and the unlimitedness, the infiniteness of Hashem? So this is the way Hashem, well, this is why, I mean, Hashem created the world because he desired the world and desired for us to do mitzvahs, because Hashem said Hashem wished to have a home in the lowest possible place. So that sounds a little paradoxical because Hashem is so holy and infinite and great. Why would he want his home? If you want to have a home, do you want to have it in the lowest place where you may be uncomfortable? Or do you want to have it in the nicest place? Right? You would want to have it in this, I mean, everyone's different. Maybe, some people may be more comfortable and more, homey or comfy kind of place as opposed to a big fancy Beverly Hills mansion. But, I'm sure no one here will complain if they got a home in a Beverly Hills mansion. So why would Hashem want to have a home in the lowest place as opposed to in one of the heavens? Or somewhere else, a different world that's a little higher, that's a little more spiritual. Because usually when you think of home, you think of a place where you're going to be comfortable, where you can like chill out and hang on the couch or whatever it is. So how does that work? So, well, when we do a mitzvah, we are making that home comfortable for God. We're making it a place where Hashem wants to hang out because we're fulfilling his ultimate desire and creating a comfortable space for him here in the lowest of places. So 12b, Shelley, want to end off?
Sure. The idea of making a home for God in the physical realm contains both extremes. A, it is a place for the limitless presence of God to be at home, fully just like a person is fully comfortable in their home. And B, the home is in this lowly, finite physical world. A home for God thus combines two extremes of limitation and limitless.
Okay. Thank you. So at the beginning of the lesson, we were discussing, hey, what are the details of mitzvahs? They seem so petty, but now we can understand that, no, they're not petty. They're just Hashem's exact way of doing things and how we bring Hashem's infiniteness into this world by doing all those little, the infinity of Hashem, the infinite expression of Hashem comes down precisely through those, what seemingly seems petty parts of doing the mitzvahs. So that is the conduit of bringing Hashem into the world and making the world a better place, bringing more light, and eventually bringing the Mashiach when everything in the world will be good and light, and we'll all see Hashem's light easily. It won't be hidden.
Amen.
So that is the end of our